The National Desk, America's News, now.
Tornado watch is in full effect as severe storms bring strong winds and hail across the middle of the country, where the threat is the worst.
Every time we move a piece of the structure, the situation could become even more dangerous. We have to move fast, but we cannot be careless.
1 week since the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed outside of Baltimore, where the cleanup stands today as the recovery effort continues. Then international influence over the general election, why lawmakers fear China could be playing games with your vote in November. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David, and we begin with severe weather sweeping in, set to hit parts of the Midwest and East Coast, impacting millions. And we want to give you the latest on those conditions. And if you take a look right here, that storm we are tracking threatening more than 45 million Americans from parts of the southern plains to the central U.S. And let's take a live look over Dallas, Texas right now, where a tornado watch is now in effect. Forecasters are urging residents to prepare for large hail and damaging winds with isolated severe storms. Another city in the storm's path, that is Oklahoma City. NOAA has placed this region in a level 3 out of 5 in terms of an enhanced risk for severe storms. Meteorologists warn hail the size of golf balls is possible, along with damaging winds and minor flooding in some areas. However, the main threat there this evening, also tornadoes. The storm will then head east on Tuesday with a threat stretching from the mid-Atlantic all the way into West Virginia. On Wednesday, we're looking at an April nor'easter. That same system could unload heavy snow on the area. We are talking somewhere in between the neighborhood of 6 inches to 2 feet through the end of the week. And make sure to stay ahead of all the alerts online all the time at the National Weather Desk, which you can find at thenationaldesk.com. A 40-mile stretch of California's iconic Highway 1 is still closed after a landslide during a storm over the weekend caused a chunk of the southbound lane to fall down a cliff. About 1,600 locals and tourists were stranded at first, but they were escorted out. There were no reported injuries. Crews are working to stabilize the edge of the roadway. President Biden will visit the site of the collapsed Baltimore bridge this Friday, the White House has announced. This as we learn the first of 2 temporary channels have opened in the vicinity of the bridge. It's a very small opening, only accessible for small vessels. The governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, today saying the bigger cleanup, that could take a lot of time.
We need to do more work clearing the channel in order to move forward. Now, I know there's an urgency to move fast. And nobody feels that urgency more than the people standing up here today. But we have to be clear on the risks.
Divers are facing tough conditions with murky, debris-filled water, Moore referring to it as, quote, chaotic wreckage. But clearing the bridge is a painstakingly slow process, as the Army Corps of Engineers knows. Every move of the debris requires a new plan for the next piece of the puzzle. The National Desk's Brad Bell has more with the colonel in charge of the effort.
Best team that's working on this.
Colonel Este Pinchason has already had a decorated career. She's been deployed overseas. She's won medals. She holds an advanced degree in engineering from Stanford University. But she's never faced a challenge like this.
It's sobering when you go out there. You see the magnitude and complexity there, and how do you eat an elephant one piece at a time? That's what we're trying to engineer our way out of.
Pinchason commands the Army Corps of Engineers Baltimore District. She led efforts to free a massive cargo ship which ran aground 2 years ago, and now she is the Army point person in the Key Bridge Unified Command Center. We speak today before she has to hurry off to a boat tour of the bridge for a visiting admiral and general.
Right now we're in the process of getting a better understanding of what the wreckage looks like in the 50-foot channel. It's very deep, it's 50 feet, and it's mangled and cantilevered.
And yet, as this video shows, the bridge is already being cut. one section already loaded on a barge.
To be 4 days in and start lifting and picking is just an incredible feat. And the engineering analysis that's taking place behind the scenes cannot be understated. Every time we lift anything off of the wreckage, we have to go back in and assess what that looks like, how the load shifted, did the wreckage react the way we thought. We have to engineer how we're going to go in and rig, then lift each piece of the wreckage. And it's like peeling back an onion. With every layer, we go back in and assess.
Despite the challenges, Penchason says she knows this job, this latest mission, will get done.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and that's kind of an Army term, but yeah. But it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be a long time. I hope that people understand the incredible effort that's going into every single lift, every pick.
And the Colonel also wants the people out there watching to know that for her, this is not just a mission, it's personal. She lives here. This is her home port. She cares. And to the families of those who are still missing out here, she says she just wants them to know that the best possible team in the world is looking to find their loved ones to bring them closure.
A suspect in the deadly Easter Sunday shooting at a Nashville coffee shop remains at large. Police say 46-year-old Anton Rucker is a convicted felon. They say a fight between two men in the restaurant led to one of the men firing shots. 33-year-old Alan Beacom was hit and died. There were 5 other gunshot victims who had non-life-threatening injuries. Investigators say Rucker fled with a woman in a Mercedes. Police also investigating a shooting that happened Saturday night in downtown Indianapolis that injured at least 7 children between the ages of 12 and 17. Officers were on patrol when they heard shots being fired near a mall at around 11 p.m. The officers and aggravated assault detectives responded to the scene, and the 7 victims were hospitalized. An arrest has not yet been made. U.S. national security officials meeting virtually with Israeli counterparts today to discuss a potential military operation in southern Gaza. The meeting was originally scheduled in person, but Israel canceled its visit to Washington just after the U.S. allowed for the passage of a United Nations resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The National Desk's Atrel Nashar has the latest from Washington.
U.S.-Israel relations in a fraught state as the Biden administration tries to persuade Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu against a military offensive in Gaza's southernmost city of Rafah.
We have laid out our concerns about this for some time, and I think it's important that both sides are having this discussion.
The administration approving additional weapons for Israel while pushing alternatives to a Rafah invasion.
We know that there are more than 1 million Palestinians who are in Rafah right now, who moved from the north to go into Rafah. If they're going to move forward with a military operations, we have to have this conversation. We have to understand how they're going to move forward.
Netanyahu denies it would deepen the humanitarian crisis.
All of the Gaza Strip north of Rafah, people move down, they can move back up.
Both leaders under immense political pressure to change course. Last week, protesters interrupting President Biden's fundraiser in New York City, and many progressives are voting uncommitted in their state's presidential primary. Back in Israel, thousands of protesters across Tel Aviv and Jerusalem call for a new government.
Netanyahu and his coalition have no intent of taking responsibility over the worst disaster in Israel's history.
They claim Netanyahu is prioritizing holding on to power over the safe return of hostages. Around the world, calls for a ceasefire continue as the death toll in Gaza nears 33,000, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Those calls echoing through the Vatican on Easter Sunday. Pope Francis appealing for an immediate ceasefire, access to humanitarian aid in Gaza, and the prompt release of hostages. Now, support for Israel among the American people slipping. A new Gallup poll shows approval of Israel's military action in Gaza is just 36%. That's a 14-point drop from November. And Amira, we've got some more developing news here. I'm sure we'll just talk through these technical difficulties here. But we are learning about another potential round of military support from the United States to Israel. CNN was first to report the administration's close to approving the sale of up to 50 U.S.-made F-15 fighter jets. It's a package estimated to be worth around $18 billion. And this package would reportedly include medium-range air-to-air missiles and joint direct attack munition kits. Now, a deal of this magnitude, especially at this moment, is certain to be scrutinized by Congress, and it could take quite a while to come to fruition. We're talking years, so it may not make a difference in this current conflict. Back to you.
All right, Atra, thank you. Live from D.C. We appreciate that report. And in a sign that the Middle East war is widening tonight, more escalation as we learn a targeted strike has destroyed the Iranian consulate in Syria's capital of Damascus. Iran reporting that of 7 killed, 2 were generals in Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps and that 5 were Iranian officers. Israel tonight alleged to be behind that attack. And just take a look at these images right here. We're just getting them in. First responders cleaning up the site of that strike, coming just days after Israel is believed to have carried out its deadliest strike in months on Syria's Aleppo province. That attack killing 40 people. Tehran is vowing a harsh military response. Israel has put Israeli embassies worldwide on high alert, though it has not officially claimed responsibility for the strike. Oklahoma officials are investigating what they're calling the suspicious disappearance of 2 women in a Texas county. 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly were driving together to pick up kids when they went missing. Police say their car was found abandoned on the side of the road. Anyone with information urged to call 911. Jury selection is underway for the murder case of 55-year-old Chad Daybell, an Idaho man accused of killing his ex-wife and new wife's 2 youngest children in 2019. The new wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, was sentenced to life in prison for the kids' murder and conspiring to kill the ex-wife. The couple claimed the 7-year-old and 17-year-old children were possessed by dark spirits and would have turned into, quote, zombies if they were killed. Daybell pleads not guilty. He could face the death penalty if convicted. And convicted killer Alex Murdaugh gets a 40-year federal prison sentence on top of his life sentence in state prison. This time, the 55-year-old disbarred South Carolina attorney is punished for stealing from clients and his law firm. The sentence is insurance on top of insurance in the case of his murder conviction of his son and wife, if that's overturned on appeal. Murdaugh has also pleaded guilty and was handed a 27-year state prison sentence for financial crime charges. A new California law setting $20 an hour for most fast food workers is now in effect. The new minimum wage is expected to give more financial security to a historically low-paying career. California has doubled its minimum wage for most of its workforce to $16 an hour in the past decade. Critics worry this will lead to higher food prices and possible layoffs in the future, although no mass layoffs occurred the last time California raised the minimum wage. And coming up, intelligence officials are once again sounding alarm bells about foreign election interference, why the strategy this time around is different. Then what you need to know about an ice cream recall linked to an outbreak in at least 16 states. Plus, how a Rhode Island couple was able to survive a horrific plane crash over the weekend. We will tell you all about it on the other side. Stay with us. AT&T is still investigating a major cyber breach that compromised the personal information of millions of people on Saturday. The company said it affects around 7.6 million current customers and more than 65 million former customers. AT&T is sending emails and letters to those impacted. It also said it reset the passwords of current users. Google must delete or remediate billions of data records it collected while users were in private browsing. Court documents out today in San Francisco give a full picture of a settlement that was agreed to in December. Google will also change its incognito settings so that third-party cookies are blocked by default. Google denies that any information gathered was ever associated with personalized advertisements. As the 2024 presidential election fast approaches, there is growing evidence that China is conducting a campaign to influence the outcome. National correspondent Christine Frizzell here with the details.
On popular social media sites like Facebook, more than 7,000 accounts have already been taken down. The ones still up feature headlines about stories like record high debt, people living in dire straits, and economic decline stemming from waging war all over the place. All part of a campaign experts say is designed to sow division and portray the United States as a society in crisis.
Threat actors might be going after specific candidates, but they can also go after voters themselves and try and dissuade them from participating in the election and say that it's ineffective, it's inefficient. Why vote if your vote's not going to count?
Similar warnings have already been issued ahead of the 2024 presidential election, with not only Russian interference, but a more emboldened China, demonstrating more sophisticated capabilities using artificial intelligence and social media sites like TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance.
TikTok has already been used to influence the elections in 2022. Director Haynes, you cannot rule out that the CCP could again use TikTok as a platform to influence 2024 elections, right?
We cannot rule out that the CCP could use it, correct?
Top intelligence officials testified on Capitol Hill last month that they try to keep social media companies in the loop when they spot accounts controlled by those they think have bad intentions.
We don't seek to be the arbiter of what's truth or fake. What we are doing is trying to identify the hidden hand of foreign adversaries, foreign intelligence services, fake accounts that in fact belong to some foreign adversary.
Experts say this time around, the efforts by foreign adversaries to influence U.S. elections are less about supporting one candidate or another, but instead creating an environment that sows chaos and division, and in turn, undermining U.S. democracy. I'm Christine Frizzell for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Christine, thank you. UPS is replacing FedEx as the primary air cargo provider for the United States Postal Service. The contract award wasn't disclosed, but UPS said it was significant. FedEx previously said it was ready to walk away from the relationship unless the terms of the existing contract improved. The company said today it will become more profitable in the year 2025. A California ice cream company that you're seeing right there, the packaging, it's recalling more than 5,000 units of ice cream bars suspected to be part of a salmonella outbreak in at least 16 states. Modesto's Tropical Foods is voluntarily recalling Helados Mexico mini ice cream variety pack after testing found possible contamination in the mango bars that are included. The recall batch has a best by date of October 11th, 2025. No illnesses have been reported connected to the recall. And millions of Hyundais and Kias are still on the road this evening, 6 months after being recalled for a dangerous fire risk. 3.4 million cars were recalled because they can catch fire even if their engines are off. The automakers have said most of them won't be able to be fixed until at least June. Owners are urged to park outside and away from other cars while waiting for repairs. And gold prices, they have reached a new record fueled by expectations of coming interest rate cuts and the appeal of a safe haven asset. Spot gold was up by 0.6% today, and gold futures, well, those rose more than 1%. Gold tends to become more appealing as interest rates fall. Analysts expect the Fed to cut rates in May or June. Trump Media and Technology Group Corp took a massive hit today on the market, down 20%, following news that the company lost $58 million in 2023. That's according to an SEC filing. The same time last year, the company had a near $51 million profit. Trump Media, that trades under the ticker symbol DJT, closed lower than it opened last week when it announced acquisition of Trump's Truth Social. And coming up, the scams you need to look out for when using popular search engines. That's right after this. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
So I considered a lot a piece of my son, Marcus. So I considered a lot a piece of my son, Marcus Payne.
We came down here for their birthdays.
London and Demetrius Walneal.
To put the locks. You know, there's not anywhere a gravesite to go and visit them, so that's what this became.
But this visit,
I came on Thursday.
Hurts instead of heals.
I just felt like I needed to come see them and pulled up right here and they're gone.
Crews from the city removed the locks during bridge maintenance. Their reason? They say to prevent extra weight from compromising structural safety.
The families plan to meet with city leaders in April to discuss a new place to remember their loved ones. But those moms tell me that doesn't take away the pain the lock removal caused.
There was a moment where I was like, I'm not sure if we're gonna make it. And then I'm like, nope, we're not gonna die today. We're gonna make it.
Just this weekend, crews rescued husband and wife Paul and Alyssa Larson from the frigid waters of Rhode Island's Narragansett Bay after their small plane lost power, forcing an emergency water landing. The couple, both volunteers with the Civil Air Patrol, sent a Mayday call to a control tower. Once on the bay, the plane quickly took on gallons of water. Each of them took a wing, and Alyssa called 911, after which emergency crews were able to rescue them.
It's called search engine poisoning, but let's back up one step. It's reasonable to think that when you type something into Google or your other favorite search engine, that the first links that pop up are the most credible. But a cyber criminal knows that you think this, and they found a way to manipulate the search engine rankings that instead lead you to a malicious website. Here's what the con can look like. When you go to type something into a search engine, whether it's your bank or you need a customer service number for a certain airline, those first links that pop up can also be an illegitimate website that a cyber criminal has made to try to look like the exact one.
And coming up, what's at stake tonight in a highly anticipated NCAA tournament rematch that's expected to break a viewership record? We'll be right back.
That competitive fire. You know, both of us want to win more than anything, and that's how it should be when you're a competitor and you get into a situation like this.
Me and Caitlin Clark don't hate each other. Like, I want everybody to understand that it's just a super competitive game.
There it is, and you are getting a live look now over Albany, New York, where in about 45 minutes, one of the most anticipated NCAA tournament rematches of all time tips off, and it's on the women's side of the bracket. A replay of last year's national title game, Iowa versus LSU, a game that set the record for the highest rated women's basketball game ever with nearly 10 million viewers. Tonight it's expected to top that as NCAA's all-time leading scorer, Caitlin Clark, you know her, and her Hawkeyes, they try to take revenge against reigning champs LSU and their star forward player Angel Reese. At stake, a trip back to the Final Four. And then at 9:15 for the final sport in the Final Four annual powerhouse, UConn playing the underdog to #1 seeded USC. Tonight's winners will play on Friday for a chance to go to the final on Sunday. And today, roughly 40,000 people visited the White House South Lawn today as President Joe Biden hosted the 144th annual White House Easter egg roll this afternoon. And it is a tradition that dates back to the 1870s. Lots of smiling children's faces, and that's exactly what we like to see on the day after Easter. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. Thank you so much for joining us.